The market was alive with the hum of voices, the clatter of pots and pans, and the rich aroma of spices wafting through the air. It was a typical day in the bustling village square, but for Ngozi, it felt anything but ordinary. She had come to buy ingredients for her daughter Ada's birthday meal, hoping to make the day special despite the growing tension at home. Her mother-in-law, Amina, had been relentless lately, constantly criticizing how Ngozi raised Ada, questioning her decisions, and even hinting that she wasn't fit to be a mother. As Ngozi bent over a pile of fresh yams, she heard the sharp click of sandals behind her. Before she could turn around, Amina's voice cut through the noise of the market like a machete slicing through brushwood. "You think you can raise my grandchild properly? Look at you, wasting money on useless things instead of teaching her respect." The words stung, but what came next made Ngozi freeze. Amina raised her hands dramatically toward the sky, her voice rising to a shout. "May your stubbornness bring shame upon this family. May no one listen to you when it matters most." People nearby stopped their shopping to stare. Some whispered sympathetically. Others tasked under their breath, clearly siding with Amina. Ngozi clenched her fists, trying to steady herself against the wave of embarrassment crashing over her. But before she could respond, a small hand slipped into hers. It was Ada, who had followed her to the market unnoticed. The little girl looked up at her grandmother with wide, unblinking eyes. "Grandma," Ada said firmly, "you shouldn't say those things." Amina blinked, caught off guard by the interruption. For a moment, there was silence between them, broken only by the distant chatter of the market. Then Ada stepped forward, her tiny frame dwarfed by the towering presence of her grandmother. "Mama works hard every day for me," Ada continued, her voice clear and unwavering. "She teaches me songs, tells me stories about our ancestors, and makes sure I have everything I need. If anyone should feel ashamed, it's not Mama, it's you." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even Ngozi stood speechless, staring down at her daughter in awe. Amina's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but no words came out. Instead, she turned on her heel and stormed away, leaving behind a trail of murmurs and shaken heads. As the villagers returned to their business, Ngozi knelt beside Ada, pulling her close. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you." But this was only the beginning. Little did Ngozi realize that Ada's courage would soon lead to changes far beyond the marketplace, and that the bond they shared would become their greatest strength in the battles yet to come. The days following the incident at the market were tense, yet strangely quiet. Amina had retreated into herself, avoiding eye contact with Ngozi whenever their paths crossed in the compound. The other villagers, too, seemed hesitant to bring up what had happened, though whispers still lingered like smoke after a fire. For Ngozi, life carried on as usual, cooking meals, tending to Ada, and managing the small garden behind their home. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was brewing beneath the surface. Ada, however, appeared unfazed by the drama. She went about her days with the same cheerful energy, skipping through the village, playing with her friends, and helping Ngozi whenever she could. Yet Ngozi noticed subtle changes in her daughter's behavior. Ada would often sit quietly under the mango tree in the yard, staring off into the distance as if deep in thought. When Ngozi asked her about it, Ada simply smiled and said, "I'm just thinking about our family." One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Ngozi decided to broach the subject more directly. Sitting beside Ada under the mango tree, she gently placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Ada," she began, her voice soft but probing, "what's been on your mind lately? You seem so serious sometimes." Ada hesitated for a moment, then turned to face her mother. Her large, expressive eyes held a wisdom far beyond her years. "Mama," she said slowly, "do you think Grandma will ever forgive us?" Ngozi sighed, leaning back against the tree trunk. She hadn't expected such a direct question, especially not from her young daughter. "I don't know, my love," she admitted. "Sometimes people hold on to anger because they're hurt or scared. But forgiveness, that takes time. But why does she hate me? Ada pressed, her voice tinged with sadness. Am I bad? Tears welled up in Ngozi's eyes at the innocence of the question. She pulled Ada close, hugging her tightly. No, my sweet girl, you are not bad. Not even a little bit. Grandma doesn't hate you. She loves you very much. It's just that sometimes adults have trouble expressing their feelings properly. They say things they don't mean because they're confused or upset. Ada nodded thoughtfully, though Ngozi wasn't sure how much of her explanation the child truly understood. Still, she felt grateful for the opportunity to reassure her daughter. As they sat together under the fading light, Ngozi resolved to find a way to mend the rift between herself and Amina, for Ada's sake, if nothing else. The next morning, Ngozi woke early, determined to take action. She prepared a basket filled with fresh fruits, roasted plantains, and a jar of honey, a peace offering of sorts, and set out for Amina's hut. The walk felt longer than usual, each step heavy with anticipation. When she arrived, she found Amina seated outside, weaving a basket with deft hands. The older woman glanced up briefly, then returned her focus to her work, pretending not to notice Ngozi's presence. Good morning, Mama, Ngozi greeted cautiously, setting the basket down beside her. I brought some food for you. I thought we could share breakfast together. Amina didn't respond immediately. She continued weaving, her movements deliberate and unhurried. Finally, without looking up, she muttered, What do you want, Ngozi? I wanted to talk, Ngozi replied, keeping her tone calm and respectful. About what happened at the market. About everything. Amina snorted dismissively. There's nothing to talk about. You've made your intentions clear enough. No, Mama, please listen, Ngozi pleaded, her voice trembling slightly. I never meant to disrespect you or challenge your authority. All I've ever wanted is to provide a good life for Ada, to honor the traditions you taught me while also giving her opportunities you didn't have. I know I make mistakes. I'm only human, but I love her more than anything in this world. And I need your guidance, not your judgment. For the first time since Ngozi arrived, Amina stopped weaving. She looked up, her weathered face unreadable. You think I don't see what's happening? She snapped, her voice rising. You're trying to turn her against me, filling her head with ideas that go against our ways, making her believe she can speak out of turn, defy elders. That's not true, Ngozi interrupted, surprising even herself with her boldness. Ada speaks her mind because she's brave, not because I encouraged her to rebel. If anything, she reminds me of you, strong-willed and unafraid to stand up for what she believes in. Isn't that something to be proud of? Amina stared at her, stunned into silence. The accusation hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and charged. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Then, slowly, Amina lowered her gaze, her shoulders sagging as if carrying an invisible weight. It's not easy, being a mother, she murmured almost to herself, especially when the world keeps changing around you. Sometimes I wonder, am I doing right by her? Am I protecting her enough? Ngozi reached out tentatively, placing a hand on Amina's arm. We're both doing our best, Mama, and maybe we can learn from each other instead of fighting all the time. Ada needs both of us, your wisdom and my hopes for her future. Together, we can give her everything she deserves. Amina didn't answer right away. Instead, she picked up a piece of fruit from the basket and began peeling it with shaky hands. After a while, she spoke again, her voice softer this time. You're right about one thing, Ngozi. That girl. She has spirit, just like her grandmother. A faint smile tugged at the corners of her mouth, and for the first time in weeks, Ngozi felt a glimmer of hope. Over the next few days, the tension between Ngozi and Amina began to ease, though progress was slow and fragile. They started spending more time together, sharing stories and advice about raising children. Amina shared tales of her own youth, of struggles and triumphs that Ngozi had never heard before. In return, Ngozi opened up about her dreams for Ada's future, explaining how education and independence could empower her daughter without erasing their cultural roots. Ada, meanwhile, seemed to sense the shift in dynamics. She became the bridge between her mother and grandmother, eagerly joining their conversations and asking questions that sparked laughter and lively debates. One afternoon, as they sat together under the mango tree, Ada suddenly announced, "I want to learn how to weave baskets like Grandma." Both women burst into laughter, delighted by the unexpected request. From that day forward, Amina took it upon herself to teach Ada the art of basket weaving, passing down skills that had been in their family for generations. Watching them work side by side, Ngozi felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the reconciliation, but for the newfound harmony within their household. Yet, despite these positive developments, Ngozi couldn't shake the lingering sense that challenges lay ahead. Life in the village was unpredictable, and tensions often simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to boil over. Little did she know, a crisis was looming, one that would test the strength of their newly repaired bond and force them to confront old wounds they thought had healed. It began with rumors spreading through the village like wildfire. Whispers of a stranger arriving in town, claiming to be related to Ada. At first, Ngozi dismissed the gossip as idle chatter, but when the man himself appeared at their doorstep one evening, her heart sank. Tall and imposing, with sharp features and piercing eyes, he introduced himself as Chitty, a distant relative from her late husband's side of the family. His presence sent shockwaves through the household, unraveling secrets that had long been buried and forcing everyone to confront uncomfortable truths. Chitty stood at the threshold of their home, his shadow stretching long across the dirt floor in the fading light of dusk. He was dressed in a crisp suit that seemed out of place among the modest huts and dusty paths of the village. His polished shoes gleamed faintly, catching the last rays of sunlight before nightfall. For a moment no one spoke. Ngozi stared at him, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Ada clung to her mother's side, peering curiously at the stranger, while Amina hovered nearby, her expression unreadable but tense. "I've come to see my niece," Chitty finally said, his voice smooth and deliberate. "Ada, isn't it? My brother's daughter." The words hit Ngozi like a punch to the gut. Brother, niece. These terms were familiar yet foreign, stirring memories she had tried so hard to bury. Her late husband, Emeka, had rarely spoken of his family, only vague mentions of disputes and estrangements that ended with silence. She had assumed they wanted nothing to do with them. But now, here was this man, claiming kinship and demanding recognition. "Who are you?" Ngozi asked cautiously, stepping forward to shield Ada from view. "How do you know my husband?" Chitty smirked, a smug curve of his lips that made Ngozi's skin crawl. "I'm surprised he never mentioned me. We shared the same blood after all. Though I suppose Emeka wasn't one for keeping ties." He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "But that doesn't change the fact that Ada is part of our lineage. And as her uncle, I have certain responsibilities." Amina stepped forward then, her voice sharp and commanding. "What kind of responsibilities? You show up uninvited, making claims about a child you've never cared for. What gives you the right?" Chitty turned his gaze toward Amina, his demeanor shifting slightly. There was a flicker of respect or perhaps fear in his eyes as he addressed her. "Respectfully, Mama, this is a matter of family honor. Ada deserves to know her roots, to understand where she comes from. If there's anyone who understands the importance of tradition, it's you." Amina bristled visibly, torn between indignation and curiosity. Ngozi could see the internal struggle playing out on her face. On one hand, Amina valued tradition above all else. On the other, she distrusted outsiders, especially those who appeared suddenly with grand speeches and ulterior motives. "Enough," Ngozi interjected firmly, breaking the tension. "You don't get to barge in here and dictate what's best for my daughter. If you truly cared about her, you would have been here years ago when she needed someone, when we needed someone. Not now, when it's convenient for you." Chitty's smile faltered for a split second, but he quickly recovered, his tone softening. "I admit I should have come sooner, but circumstances prevented me. Now that I'm here, I only want what's best for Ada. Let me prove myself. Allow me to spend time with her, to teach her about her heritage. Ngozi opened her mouth to protest, but Ada's small voice interrupted her. Mama, can I talk to him? All eyes turned to the little girl, who looked up at her mother with wide, earnest eyes. Just for a little while. Please. For a moment, Ngozi hesitated. The protective instinct within her screamed to say no, to send Chidi away and never look back. But something in Ada's expression stopped her. A quiet determination, much like the one she'd shown at the market. Reluctantly, Ngozi nodded. Fine. But I'll be watching. Over the next few days, Chidi became a regular presence in their lives. He brought gifts, colorful beads, storybooks, and even a small wooden flute carved with intricate patterns. He told Ada stories of their ancestors, tales filled with bravery, magic, and lessons about the importance of family. At first, Ada listened eagerly, captivated by the vivid imagery and the sense of connection to a world she had never known. But Ngozi remained wary, observing every interaction with a critical eye. It wasn't until the third evening that Ngozi's suspicions deepened into outright alarm. She overheard Chidi speaking to Ada outside, his voice low but urgent. Do you know why your father left us? He asked. He didn't agree with how things were done in our family. He thought he could abandon his duties and start anew. But blood is thicker than water, Ada. One day you'll understand that. Ngozi froze, gripping the edge of the doorway to steady herself. Duties? Abandonment? None of this aligned with the man she had married, the kind, gentle soul who had loved her and Ada fiercely. What was Chidi implying? And why did it feel like he was planting seeds of doubt in Ada's mind? That night, after Chidi had left, Ngozi confronted Amina. They sat together under the mango tree, the moon casting silvery shadows across the yard. Something isn't right, Ngozi confessed, her voice trembling. He's not just here to reconnect with Ada. There's something more, something darker. Amina frowned, her brow furrowed in thought. You may be right. Men like him always have an agenda. But what can we do? If we push him away too forcefully, he might cause trouble for us in the village. People already listen to him. He's charming, well-spoken. They'll take his side if it comes to that. Ngozi sighed, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on her. Then we need to find out what he really wants. And we need to protect Ada. From him, and from whatever lies he's telling her. Amina nodded grimly. We'll figure it out together. For Ada's sake. The following morning, Ngozi decided to dig deeper. She visited the village elder, an old woman named Amara who was known for her wisdom and insight. Amara listened intently as Ngozi recounted everything that had happened, her weathered face growing increasingly grave. Chidi, Amara murmured thoughtfully. Yes, I remember him. He caused quite a stir years ago, stirring up trouble within his own family. Rumor has it he's always been ambitious, too ambitious for his own good. Be careful, Ngozi. Men like him don't act without purpose. What should I do? Ngozi asked desperately. How can I protect my daughter? Amara placed a reassuring hand on Ngozi's shoulder. Trust your instincts, child, and trust in the strength of your family. You, Amina, and Ada, you're stronger together than any outsider could ever be. Whatever Chidi's plan is, it will crumble if you stand united. With renewed resolve, Ngozi returned home, determined to confront Chidi once and for all. But when she arrived, she found Ada sitting alone under the mango tree, clutching the wooden flute he had given her. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and her small frame shook with silent sobs. Ada, what's wrong? Ngozi asked, rushing to her side. Did something happen? Ada looked up, her eyes red and swollen. Uncle Chidi said, he said Papa left because of me, that I wasn't good enough. That's why he went away. Ngozi's heart shattered at the sight of her daughter's pain. Pulling Ada into her arms, she held her tightly, rocking her gently as she whispered reassurances. No, my love, that's not true. Your Papa loved you more than anything in this world. He didn't leave because of you. He left to give us a better life. Don't ever believe otherwise. As Ada cried herself to sleep in her mother's embrace, Ngozi vowed to put an end to Chitty's manipulations once and for all. This time, she wouldn't face him alone. With Amina by her side, she prepared for the confrontation that would decide their family's future and Ada's happiness. The morning sun filtered through the gaps in the thatched roof, casting golden streaks across the floor of their modest home. Ngozi sat cross-legged on a woven mat, her hands clasped tightly together as she rehearsed what she would say to Chitty. Beside her, Amina busied herself with sharpening a knife, a symbolic gesture more than anything else, but one that underscored the gravity of the situation. The air was thick with unspoken determination, each woman steeling herself for the battle ahead. "We need proof," Amina said suddenly, breaking the silence. "Something concrete to expose him for who he really is." Ngozi nodded, though her mind raced with uncertainty. How could they gather evidence against someone as cunning as Chitty? He had already won over many villagers with his charm and gifts, weaving a web of lies that seemed impossible to untangle. Still, she couldn't give up, not when Ada's well-being was at stake. "I'll go to the market today," Ngozi decided aloud. "Someone there must know something about him. People talk, especially in places like this. If I listen carefully, maybe I can piece together the truth." Amina gave a curt nod of approval. "And I'll keep an eye on Ada. She trusts him too much right now. We can't let him twist her thoughts any further." With their plans set, Ngozi left for the market, her heart heavy yet resolute. As she navigated the crowded stalls, she kept her ears open, eavesdropping on conversations and subtly steering discussions toward Chitty. It wasn't long before she struck gold, or rather, whispers of scandal. "Did you hear?" murmured a vendor selling dried fish to a customer. "That man's staying with Ngozi's family. Apparently, he's been stirring up trouble wherever he goes. Some say he even swindled his own cousins out of their land." Another voice chimed in nearby. "Yes, and didn't he try to marry off his sister to some rich trader without her consent? The poor girl ran away to escape him." Ngozi's pulse quickened. These were exactly the kinds of stories she needed, proof that Chitty was not the benevolent uncle he pretended to be. She lingered near the gossiping group, pretending to examine a basket of spices while absorbing every detail. By the time she returned home, her head was spinning with revelations. "Amina," Ngozi called urgently as she entered the compound. "I found out things about Chitty, terrible things. He's not just here for Ada. He's using her to get something else. Maybe money, maybe influence. Whatever it is, we have to stop him." Amina's eyes narrowed, her expression hardening. "Then tonight we confront him. Together." As dusk settled over the village, casting long shadows across the yard, Chitty arrived as expected, carrying another gift for Ada, a beautifully embroidered cloth. He greeted them warmly, seemingly oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. Ngozi and Amina exchanged a glance, silently signaling that it was time. "Chitty," Ngozi began, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "We need to talk." He raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. "Of course. What is it?" "It's about your intentions here," Ngozi continued, stepping closer. "You claim to care about Ada, about reconnecting with our family. But everything you've done suggests otherwise. Why are you really here?" Chitty's smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. "I don't understand what you mean. My motives are pure. I only want to ensure Ada knows her heritage." "That's not true," Amina interjected sharply. "We've heard the stories about you, about how you exploit those around you for personal gain. Do you think we're fools? That we wouldn't see through your lies?" For the first time, Chitty's composure cracked. His jaw tightened, and his gaze darted between the two women, searching for a way out. "Stories? Gossip from jealous tongues? You shouldn't believe everything you hear." "Oh, but we do," Ngozi countered, her voice rising. "Because it makes sense. You show up out of nowhere, showering Ada with gifts and tales of our so-called heritage. But all along, you've been planting seeds of doubt in her mind, making her question her worth. Why? To weaken her trust in us? To make her dependent on you?" Chitty's face darkened, and for a moment, Ngozi feared he might lash out. Instead, he laughed. A cold, bitter sound that sent shivers down her spine. You think you're protecting her? You're just clinging to the past, refusing to see the bigger picture. Ada deserves better than this life, better than what you can offer her. With me, she could have opportunities beyond your wildest dreams. And at what cost? Amina snapped, stepping forward until she was face to face with him. You'd tear her away from her mother, from her roots, all for your selfish ambitions. That's not love, that's greed. The confrontation reached a fever pitch, voices rising and emotions spilling over. From the corner of her eye, Ngozi noticed Ada standing in the doorway, watching the scene unfold with wide, frightened eyes. Her heart ached to see her daughter caught in the middle of such chaos, but she knew this was necessary, to expose Chidi for who he truly was. Finally, Chidi threw up his hands in frustration. Fine, believe what you want, but mark my words, you're making a mistake. Ada will realize the truth eventually, and when she does, she'll regret choosing you over me. With that, he stormed off into the night, leaving behind an eerie silence. For a moment, no one moved. Then Ngozi turned to Ada, kneeling down to meet her at eye level. My love, she said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. You know how much I love you, right? And Grandma loves you too. We would never do anything to hurt you. Ada nodded slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. I know, Mama. I'm sorry I doubted you. There's nothing to apologize for, Ngozi reassured her, pulling her into a tight embrace. You're smart and brave just like your grandmother said, and no matter what anyone tells you, you are enough. Always remember that. The days that followed were quieter, though the memory of Chidi's visit lingered like a shadow. Word spread throughout the village about his true nature, and soon he was no longer welcome. Without allies or support, he disappeared as suddenly as he had arrived, leaving Ngozi, Amina, and Ada to rebuild their lives together. Under the mango tree, the 3 generations of women sat side by side, weaving baskets and sharing laughter once again. Though scars remained, they served as reminders of their strength and resilience. Together, they had faced adversity and emerged stronger, bound by love and the unbreakable ties of family. Weeks turned into months, and life in the village gradually returned to its usual rhythm. The storm that Chidi had brought with him had passed, leaving behind lessons that would shape their family for years to come. Though his presence was gone, the impact of his visit lingered, not as a wound, but as a scar that reminded them of their strength and unity. Ada grew quieter after Chidi's departure, retreating into herself as she processed everything that had happened. She spent hours under the mango tree, weaving baskets alongside Amina or sketching pictures in the dirt with a stick. Ngozi watched her closely, ensuring she felt safe and loved, but she also gave her space to heal in her own time. It wasn't until one sunny afternoon, weeks later, that Ada finally opened up. Mama, she began hesitantly, looking up from the basket she was working on. Do you think I'll ever forget what Uncle Chidi said? Ngozi paused, setting aside the yams she had been peeling for dinner. She knelt beside her daughter, meeting her gaze with gentle eyes. No, my love, I don't think you'll forget, but that's okay. Sometimes the hardest things we go through teach us the most important lessons. What matters is how we choose to carry those memories, with anger or with understanding. Ada frowned thoughtfully, turning the words over in her mind. So, does that mean I can forgive him? Ngozi smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from Ada's face. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what someone did. It's about freeing yourself from the hurt they caused. If you feel ready to let go of the pain he left behind, then yes, you can forgive him. But only when you're ready, not because anyone else tells you to. Ada nodded slowly, her expression softening. For the first time in weeks, a faint smile tugged at the corners of her lips. I think I want to try. Ngozi pulled her close, hugging her tightly. That's my brave girl. As Ada began to heal, so too did the bond between Ngozi and Amina. Their shared victory over Chidi's manipulation had forged a new level of trust and respect between them. No longer were they adversaries locked in a battle of wills. Instead, they became partners, united by their love for Ada and their commitment to preserving their family's legacy. One evening, as the three of them sat together under the stars, Amina told a story, a tale passed down through generations about a young girl who faced great challenges but emerged stronger because of the support of her family. As she spoke, Ngozi noticed Ada leaning forward, captivated by every word. When the story ended, Ada clapped her hands excitedly. "That was amazing, Grandma!" she exclaimed. "Can you teach me more stories like that? Maybe someday I can tell them to other kids." Amina beamed with pride, her eyes shining in the firelight. "Of course, my dear. Our stories are part of who we are. They remind us where we come from and guide us toward where we're going." Ngozi listened quietly, her heart swelling with gratitude. In that moment, she realized just how far they had come. The rifts that once threatened to tear them apart had been mended, replaced by a foundation of love, wisdom, and resilience. Together, they were creating something beautiful, a tapestry woven from their shared experiences, struggles, and triumphs. Months later, the village gathered for a celebration unlike any other. Ngozi had organized a feast to honor the bonds of family and community, inviting everyone to join in the festivities. Tables groaned under the weight of roasted meats, steaming jollof rice, and platters of fresh fruit. Children ran barefoot through the crowd, laughing and playing, while elders exchanged stories beneath the shade of ancient trees. At the center of it all stood Ngozi, Amina, and Ada, surrounded by villagers who had come to admire their strength and unity. Ada proudly displayed the baskets she had woven, each one a testament to the skills her grandmother had taught her. Amina looked on with quiet satisfaction, her heart full knowing that their traditions would live on through her granddaughter. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the village in hues of gold and crimson, Ngozi raised a cup of palm wine in a toast. "To family," she declared, her voice ringing clear above the chatter. "To the ties that bind us, even in the toughest times. And to the future we build together." The crowd erupted in cheers, raising their own cups in response. Amid the laughter and music, Ngozi caught sight of Ada dancing with her friends, her laughter echoing like a melody. Beside her, Amina swayed gently to the beat, her eyes closed in contentment. For the first time in a long while, Ngozi felt truly at peace. In the days and years that followed, the scars of the past faded, replaced by brighter memories and dreams for the future. Ada grew into a confident young woman, carrying with her the lessons of her childhood, the importance of courage, forgiveness, and staying true to oneself. Ngozi continued to nurture her daughter's ambitions, supporting her as she pursued education and opportunities beyond the village. And Amina, though slower now with age, remained a guiding force, passing down stories and wisdom that connected them to their ancestors. Through it all, the mango tree stood tall in their yard, its branches spreading wide like arms embracing the sky. Beneath its shade, the women of the family gathered often, sharing laughter, tears, and dreams. It became a symbol of their resilience, a reminder that no matter how fierce the storms, they could weather them together. And so, their story came full circle, not with an ending but with a promise. A promise that as long as they stood united, their family would endure, rooted deeply in love and strengthened by the trials they had overcome. The end.